You go ahead.
I was going to say, so this is our first time podcasting. Thank you again for you all to come out tonight to support this launch, because Bill's dream is to have more of these where we bring the community together and can have deeper discussions on finding comfort in discomfort.
Right.
Is our topic for tonight. There'll be many, many, many topics with a broad range that we've discovered since we met, which was only
Right.
2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, amazing.
And incredible perspectives meeting, two very different perspectives meeting. So we hope to be a bridge in this dialogue and this communication to support this beautiful community of Caslow and the Kootenays, and then where it ripples out to and who experiences this dialogue to help to open the warm, soft-hearted nature of all of humankind, really.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then tonight is obviously free, and then what you're going to say about donations and about your book?
Yeah, we can talk about that real quick. So tonight is a free event, and the reason for that was, number one, because it's pilot, I don't know if people even come to a live podcast. How many here have been to or watch podcasts? How many people watch podcasts on YouTube? Yeah, I mean, that's everybody. And it's a big thing, and there's a lot of different topics, and nobody knows where to go for different topics. They all have their favorite. I have my favorite. I won't even mention them because I probably get shut down by YouTube for them. I don't know. Are we allowed? I don't know. There's so many rules these days of what I can say or not say. So I'm just, it's a great opportunity. And because of the connection that we've made in the last couple of weeks, I mean, we've really only met each other 3 or 4 times, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And each time we've met, it's been great. We can definitely, we're on the same page, but unfortunately we see things differently because of what I call our habitual manner of thinking. And that's what I write about in the book.
So
And,
my name is
so I
Mahalia
wrote-
Michael. I've been 3 decades in understanding the human condition. Deep study, so much so that I created a school around brain trauma recovery and understanding the science of energy and how energy can bend reality, and how we have the power to bend reality, being a person who had 7 concussions and a history of PTSD, and then recovering from that, rebuilding my brain from the bottom up many years ago. And so my online school, my academy, has helped countless people from around the world to gain sovereignty out of the slavery of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I feel that Bill's book touches on what my experiences of suffering in trauma, yet his comes from the biblical perspective and the global trauma that we have been under. So I recently wrote a 500-page book about my science, and I am wanting to get my message out there because the thing we found in common, and we've had discomfort in our conversations, but we've found comfort by listening to one another's perspective.
Very true.
Because I've never read the Bible, and I've experienced miracles though. And I think maybe people listening here have also experienced miracles, and they're unexplainable. And yet, if you don't know the Bible, or you haven't gone down that path in your lifetime, then Bill's language may not be as easy to digest, but those who do understand it is easier to digest. So what I was able to do when we met in only a few meetings is through his quotes from the Bible, I was able to break it down in science. And, well, my understanding, just little old me, because I can only speak from my personal experience and what I've witnessed with my students around the world. So I am excited to have this conversation. So that's just me in a little bit of a nutshell. And what I'm inspired about you is you've been a father, you've been a husband, you've raised 5 children, you have adopted children, and what we talked about earlier is how you have loved each of your children equally,
Yeah.
and how you did not cast judgment on the differences in each of your children.
That's right.
Love them all equally.
That's right.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit too, or should we just dive in?
Just dive in. Let's
because
go.
biggest number one question I've had is the title of this experience is Meet the Vessel.
Right.
I would love to know what that means to you. What does it mean to meet the vessel? And how can we all meet the vessel? Are you the vessel? Is everyone here the vessel? So what does that mean to you?
Okay. That's an interesting question, because I said, don't tell me what your question's going to be. Okay, so I got to the end of the book and I was signing off, and I, thank you. It's at the end of the book. It's called the last chapter is called "It Is Finished." It is not finished, and I sat down. I finished it, and I went by. I was like by the author, and I'm going, no, I'm not an author. I'm not an author, and I just kept playing with it, by the writer, and I just by the vessel. And I just wrote it. I just went by the vessel, William John, and I sent it off. And when the publisher looked at the book, at the end of it, they had made this cover, and it just said William John on there. And I said, I want by the vessel on the book. And so we made that change. And I loved what they had developed for me. They asked me if I wanted, what I wanted the cover to look like, and they nailed it. Like, it was just, it's like as soon as I opened up they give you some covers when if you're using a publishing house, they'll give you options for covers. And so they gave me 3 options for covers, and this was the very first one I opened, and I just fell in love with it. And so By the Vessel became part of a series that I wanted to create. There's a 3-part series. This book was actually a culmination of ideas that I had over the last 3 years since the C Word, and I went ahead to start writing this after a very poor judgment on me by a judge. I felt I was wrongly judged, and I instead of getting mad, I thought, well, I'm gonna write a book, and I'll finish that book that I started years ago. And so that's what I did. And as a result, when I finished it, the vessel kept coming up, this idea of a vessel. So literally, because in the Bible it does talk about being a vessel for God. And I can't tell you where they are in Scripture. I didn't actually go and study them even now today, and I wasn't sure. I would have been more prepared had I known your question. But in the Bible it talks about being a vessel for God. So that was really important for me, because we are vessels. We're all vessels if we want to be. And this was, so I'm not the vessel, even though the book is the vessel. I'm a vessel. And I think we can all be vessels, for whatever it is. We can be vessels for good, or we can be vessels for bad. We can be vessels for evil, the evil side of our heart. That's a little bit of the symbolism. Or we can be vessels for the good, right? We can learn. There's a thing in the Bible called the fruits of the Spirit, and in my last blog I used the fruits of the Spirit, which is peace, kindness, loveliness, joyful, right? And so that's the part of Jesus' message that I want to get out to people. And it's not just Jesus' message. It's been thrown out so many times by different people throughout the lifetime. And so it's just that I come to it with my habitual manner of thinking, which is 25 years studying the Bible. And anyway, so yeah, that's where the vessel came from. And yeah, that's a long answer. Sorry.
That's so your interpretation. I love that. Thank you. About being the vessel. I picture like a ship or
Yeah,
a
a ship,
sailboat,
yeah.
and truly that desire to be that. So I call it the instrument. So the
Right.
body's the instrument, and the music of creation comes through, and then it's up to us to let that music flow or not. Now, with post-traumatic stress disorder, with unresolved trauma, which there are millions of people on the planet, possibly billions now, because of what we've just been through with the C word, which we'll get into that as
Right.
far as
Right.
what it means to cast spells,
Right.
and from a female perspective as well, and or a man's perspective, male perspective. But when someone's in PTSD, so I speak from personal experience, and we want to be that vessel,
Right.
and we really do believe, maybe we believe in a higher power, but still our vessel, possibly because of vibration, we don't feel peace, we don't feel happiness, we're not able to engage in manifesting and in making our dreams come true. We're struggling, we're suffering,
Right.
and it's uncomfortable, and we want comfort, and we believe, but there is that vibration, and we could say it as so simply as, well, just believe. And
Right.
I would do my affirmations, and I
Right.
would, just be crying, praying for help, and it doesn't always come
Right.
for those that we genuinely want that. So in that regard, what would you say would, like, because you've been through a lot too. You have been through your share of traumas. Everyone here has, anyone listening. And how do we, in those very dark times, steer our vessel, our ship, in a new direction, steer our music? I know how I did it scientifically. And say someone doesn't want to pick up the Bible. They weren't raised that way. I was not.
Right.
I had a very fun, different, not saying it's not fun, but
No.
my family, my parents were just that. My neighbor to the left of me was a Presbyterian minister, and
Oh, no.
my neighbors to the right owned the Harley Davidson dealership.
That's awesome.
I had quite a mix, and that was a great childhood. So, but I feel like my prayers did finally get answered by meeting Dr. Swingle, a psychoneurophysiologist, who then got me into neurofeedback. But it was still a long journey, and I feel like there's many people with this feeling uncomfortable and wanting comfort. So how did you turn your ship around? Like, what was it? Because you'd read it all, you were trying to live it, you still had traumas. What is different now for you?
What brought me to how did I come out of my trauma? So I didn't feel I had trauma, number one. And number two, I had been following what I thought was the only way. It's the true way. And I write about it in the book. In the book, yeah, Jesus Christ is the only way. But it can come to, I read an amazing book that changed my life, really did, was called Mutant Message Down Under. And I will plug that book. It's a good read. And what it was is that they were trying to convert this lady was trying to convert the Aboriginals of Australia, only to be converted. It was an amazing book. She was a Christian, very, very well to do, and was commissioned to go and change, mission to the Aboriginals. And the Aboriginals were saying, no, we believe in oneness, which is unity, which is what we're doing now. Right?
So
unity.
Getting back to the brain and the devil part, because it's so easy to, with those lower brains, to project and judge someone else. And this is getting back to the finding comfort in discomfort. Right. Because how can we build love from a structure that has been broken down? When there isn't a foundation in the brain, how do we rebuild from there if that is the only thing we know, what we think is so real? And where is that heaven on earth? Well, through neurofeedback for me, through sound,
right,
through finding my voice,
right,
and years of of investment in rebuilding this brain, so I wasn't taken out of the game of life early,
Right.
was discovering that heaven on earth is in the brain too.
Right. Right.
And it becomes a movie screen or a projection. And as I evolved over the years, I landed in beautiful Caslow, which is like heaven on earth, in this
Really is,
beautiful
yeah.
community of incredible artists, incredible, gifted, nourishing, nurturing, divine, holy people.
Yeah.
Whatever their religious beliefs, whatever their, like, they got here too.
That's right.
And they've been here decades. I'm new, 2.5 years, year and a half.
Yeah.
And blessed to be welcomed into this community.
Yeah.
So honored to be here. It is the best place. And so my journey has been a traveler, living around different parts of the States for many years, developing my technology and message to recover the brain out of the destructive habits and getting stuck on repeat.
Right.
So I'm saying all this because to me, what you just shared seems so outside of us.
Right.
And that is where we can get even more uncomfortable.
Right.
And my passion is to bring comfort to people.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, so my job is not to make people feel uncomfortable. My job is our job, right? Our job is to find that common ground. And the common ground is in us. It's God in us.
That's right.
It's Christ in us, right? So my message, because I've studied what I've studied, I've come to this crazy conclusion that everything that I studied was for naught. Solomon says, all that I've done is vanity, right? And he was considered one of the wisest men ever to, be in the face of the earth. I mean, even wiser than Darwin. I mean, no, I'm just teasing.
I wonder if he had a wife.
I'm just teasing. But he was considered wise. He wanted wisdom and he got wisdom. And at the end of the day, it was for naught. And what we're discussing about being uncomfortable, I mean, it's so deep right now with everybody. I mean, I was in relationships, over the last 23 years where it felt like you were always being triggered by something, right? So there's so much division happening and you're right. It's the trauma that people have had from their childhood, a lot of that haven't dealt with it, that haven't come to grips with taking ownership.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And this is what we talk about we talked about your one son.
Yeah.
And praising him and like finding praise, finding celebration, finding what are the qualities of every individual and celebrating that, because to love one another, to get that encouragement going.
Right.
And so getting back to it's easy to look outside of us, like what's going on in Palestine, what is happening right down the road in Nelson, what's happening with
anything.
the weather, and it's
things
so
that you can't
then
control.
that seems out of our control.
That's right.
But what we can control and what our devotion here tonight is to give the audience solutions,
Right.
what they can do.
Right.
So when I notice that I'm dissociated, I've left this instrument, I've left the vessel.
Yeah.
I've hopped off my sailboat.
Yeah.
I was going to paradise because when I was super comfortable connecting with Creator, with Almighty, and it's it's my favorite place to be, is in devotion.
Right.
Yet then something scary happened out there, or something happened to a friend or a loved one, and I so badly want to help. I'm concerned about animals. I'm concerned about the ocean. I'm concerned about all the beautiful creatures in the ocean. I want to make that difference. So how do I find that comfort? So I got to sit back, reconnect, get in my body, and go on high again.
Right.
Get high on the infinite supply.
That's right.
And that's that is so far what has soothed me because of the stress response, the
Right.
addiction to adrenaline and cortisol versus the addiction to pleasure, contentment, which on a biological level is peace inside. It is peace on earth inside of us.
Right. So where I go with this is that in the Bible, Luke 17 says, the kingdom of heaven is within, right? So what you just said is I agree with 100%. And so it's all in the terminology. And the paradise earth that you talk about, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will
Be done.
on
Earth,
as,
it is in heaven.
right,
Creation or God in a visceral sense is music
right,
and movement.
Right.
Music, movement,
Right.
breath. And this, the Kootenays, has been so extraordinary and wonderful for music, movement, and breath. And if for me, in this experience of innocence and that purity of mind, which in terms of the brain, when we get out of that devilish nature that wants to hurt and harm oneself and then potentially then harm another, which equals attack, is to recognize there's another whole part of the brain.
right.
It's the higher neocortex. It's the newest part. And it's where we can go into the now moment, and we can go into that, as we experienced in the concert, the Ho'oponopono, Hawaiian
Right.
prayer from Dr. Hugh Len.
Yeah. Say it again.
I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Yeah.
And to me, for that, if we look at these wars, and for me, I see, the war within.
Yeah.
And Chief Dan George, in one of his prayers, says, "Help me face my biggest villain, myself."
Right.
Like, think of the brainwashing we've been under.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
But really, there's so much abundance, and it's endless in our imagination.
Jesus was all about abundance, and he says, don't look at the birds in the air. They don't worry about where their food comes from. Look at the flowers. They grow every year. They come back, right?
Yes.
Like God's ultimate creation is that we do live in a paradise earth, but we've polluted it with want and need. And friend of mine, we're talking today, and what did he say? And it was just so prophetic. He's
the fight to not.
that
engage.
too. That was another friend. I had to find my tribe today because I was feeling a little bit nervous about some of our discussions. And he said, I don't think that we're ever meant to build houses. And he lives on the reserve. And he said, because the ants come and they eat them and they rot. I think we're supposed to be nomadic. And I was like, wow, that's pretty profound, because we've put these borders up all over the world, right? I was going to do a blog called Jesus Christ is a Communist for effect. For effect. Because, the money machine is all about creating borders. You were saying something the first night I met you, that we actually talked. You were at Neil's thing, and you were talking about your birthright, your birth certificate. Those are little things that a lot of people probably don't understand. But yeah, we're sovereign beings.
Energy is
a lot of
rising.
people-
More
I
of the
agree.
Shakti
Yeah, I
in
agree.
everyone,
Yeah.
man, woman, child, Earth herself. She's rising. She's done being with the chastity belt on. She's done with the concrete. She's ready for the natural order. So natural order comes through our voice and through our imagination.
Yeah.
And wasn't it Jesus that said imagination is your number one pearl?
Yeah.
I
I would have to look that up. but
Okay,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Good.
don't know.
Thank you.
I would have to.
Okay.
But
So-
it's something that we may have,
Yeah.
a lot of Christians, as I read through the Bible
Mm-hmm.
and things look different to me now. So there's a lot of things that have been attributed to Jesus that aren't. And there's a lot of things that get attributed to other people that were actually from the words of Jesus. So, so I'm not saying it's not in there.
No.
But
Well, just getting back to judgment and then also
Yeah.
on the spells, because I don't know how our
I
timing
want
is, but
the spells. I want to talk about that
yes.
real quick.
And like you had a judgment of me, a perception
Yeah,
of my
let's
outer,
talk about that,
who you didn't know me. So,
Yes.
and we've both written books.
Right. Yeah.
We're not supposed to judge a book by
No,
its cover.
right.
And so we know that.
And what I got from you yesterday was that I was also being judged
Perceived.
from this
From
from some of my
me?
wording. No. From your circle of friends, you were saying you were that
Those that have been traumatized from
Yeah.
religion
yeah
and then experiencing some
Yeah.
of what you write
yeah
and your biblical quotes,
yeah
it
Triggers
was intimidating them
yeah
and intimidated me.
Yeah.
Because it's not a language I know, understand.
right
I understand the language of love and I understand the language of what it means to be in trauma. And then
Right.
also learning because of my own recovery, and the years of deep suffering, was to have compassion
Right.
for others and seeing the bigger picture.
There was a
So I
number
was
of
like,
men that I was hoping to podcast with. And the reason is because now you talk about the feminine and how everything's connected. Well, for men, we're builders, we're fixers by nature. We want to fix things. We want to, right? That's why I'm not saying all men and I'm not saying all women are this way. There's crossovers, of course. We understand that. But men want to fix things. And so, how do we fix the communities, right? It's through the men, and so that was coming through. And then I met you and I'm like, and all the other guys were they were either out of town, they had other business. I met with one guy and he was very nervous about meeting with me because of his position in town. And so, because they didn't know where it was going to go. They didn't know what I was going to say. They didn't know never read my book. They don't know anything about me. And so I was at a loss. I'm like, this thing's not going to happen. I'm going to cancel it. And then you came up and I was like, oh no, not at all. No, I was kind of like, oh, that's going to be a judgment from the Christian community is going to judge you. I know they are because I've walked in those shoes. And so I was more nervous about the fact of what other people were going to say instead of the fact that we need to find common ground and that you bring to the table the feminine and I can bring the masculine. And I think it works amazing that we can dialogue like this and we can find common ground. Because obviously men and women don't hate each other, but we seem to be so divided right now. And I think it's time that so it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just so perfect that,
Yeah.
so we can find comfort in being discomfort, right? Being in this discomfort.
Right.
I don't feel discomfort, by the way.
me neither right now.
Let's finish up with what are some things that we want to see people take from this?
Okay, so finding comfort in discomfort is the one thing, like knowing I'll be judged, knowing you'll be judged.
Right.
And any human is going to probably feel that at some point in their life, and they may have judged. I have judged.
Yeah, I have to.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
And the
Judge not, lest she be judged, by the way.
yes, so and we can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. Thank you to Einstein.
Right.
So the same level of problem, if we're talking from a biblical perspective, was all about the men, it seemed to be, from my understanding. And God seemed to be a masculine figure, and then Jesus, the son. And so yes, weave in the feminine now. Thank you. Weave in the feminine and the feminine voices and what we have to say to support the men to rebuild the community and the communication, to bridge that let us all work equally together and find that common ground. So also when it comes to judgment, because I am used to having many arrows in my back, and it's not new to me. So what I got used to doing is saying thank you. Yes, I am all that.
Yeah.
I'm all of what you think.
You're not.
I-
though. Don't take it to heart, though.
I've had moments though.
Yeah.
Like-
Don't take it to heart.
No, I'm not. Through Creator
Yeah.
is not, it is not this biological instrument that takes it to heart anymore.
Good.
From a traumatized perspective, absolutely.
Yeah.
But from one who feels at peace with spirit and one who feels that devotion and that alignment and that comfortability of being a sovereign, a woman of Creator. There's nothing better. Like, I don't have to go anywhere else to find validation.
Yeah.
So in that is comfort.
Yeah.
And I want that for every human being,
Me too.
right?
Yeah.
Solid
Yeah.
in core, in soul,
Yeah.
solid in brain, solid in spirit, soul.
Yeah.
And that to me is finding comfort in discomfort, because let us love
gonna
our
be-
neighbors.
That's
Let us
ourself,
love
yeah.
ourselves from a primary narcissistic place, which is as babies
Yeah.
would.
Yeah.
And let us love men, and let us love women.
Mm-hmm.
Let us love the magic that equality brings,
Yeah.
and hearing and listening to one another
Yeah.
in our differences,
Yeah. For
finding
sure.
comfort. Let's get comfy.
Yeah. Okay.
Every inch of my body, each fiber and cell is vibrating with desire, high on life itself. I'm consciously making space, opening and allowing. I'm doing the work that's needed. I'm ready, bring it in, 'cause I know that I am worthy of it all. The wonders and the magic, all I'm dreaming of. And this is a new way of living, a world waking up. We are rising in love. Breathing deep, I feel God within and around me. The true light of my being is there for me to see. All is becoming clear. The veil is oh so thin. Everything is changing, but I'm ready. Bring it in, 'cause I know that I am worthy of it all. The wonders and the magic, all I'm dreaming of. And this is a new way of living, a world waking up. We are rising in love.